Welcome! My name's Cathi, and today we are going to be working on joint mobility. So if your joints have been feeling a little stiff or tense or sore, I promise you they're going to feel better after this. We're going to be on all fours, so let's get there now. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and when you're putting your hands down, you want to go fingertips first, then that first big set of knuckles, then your palms. And if that is a little too intense of an angle for your wrists, you can always move your hands a little farther forward. That's perfectly fine. So the first thing we're going to do is wake up those shoulders. Now there's a trick to this one. You have to keep your spine and your hips in a neutral position. So really hang on with your abdominal muscles. Give them a little love there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and edit that. Yeah, we're just gonna start over.
You've got time.
Yeah. Welcome. My name's Cathi, and today we are going to be working on joint mobility. So if your joints have been feeling tense or tight or stiff lately, this is going to make them feel a lot better. We're going to start on all fours, so let's get there now. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And when you put your hands down, go fingertips first, then that first big set of knuckles, then your palms, balancing your weight evenly. And if this angle is a little too intense for your wrists today, go ahead and walk those hands just a little bit forward. We're going to start with our shoulders, and we are going to isolate our shoulders, which means we've got to keep spine and hips in neutral. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. We're going to start by protracting and retracting our shoulder blades. Protract means to separate those shoulder blades, pushing the floor away. Retract, you're going to squeeze them together. Protract, separate, and retract, squeeze them together. So just start trying that out. And watch out for a couple of things. Number one, don't bend your elbows. Your arms are going to stay straight. But number two, and this is the one that's challenging, when you go into protract, it is really tempting to want to flex your spine. Try to keep it in that neutral position. When you go into retract, it's going to be really tempting to want to flex your hips. So you want to keep them in neutral. The only thing that's moving are those shoulder blades, sliding apart and sliding together. Make that movement as big as you can without involving your spine and your hips. And then come back to center. And we're going to go elevate and depress. Sliding your shoulder blades up towards your ears and back towards your hips. And same thing here. Spine is neutral, hips are neutral. The only thing that's moving are those shoulder blades just sliding up and down your rib cage. Now elevate's pretty easy. We tend to do this one a lot. Depress is a little tougher. So when you feel the muscles that are working to make that motion happen, give them a little extra flex. And then come back to center, and let's sit back and take a little wrist break. Gently interlace your fingers and just make some little circles. Now, it is totally normal for your wrist to feel a little uncomfortable in something like that, because we are putting a lot of pressure down in those wrists. Discomfort is fine. It means they're getting stronger. Pain is not, though. Don't work through pain. So if you need to take a break before I take a break, take a break. Give those wrists a little love. Now we're going to come up into a kneeling position. So we're going to give your wrists a break anyway. And we're going to do some big circles with those shoulders. Now, if you have something light that you want to hold in your hand, you can do that. Or just try this without any weight at all. I'll do it without any weight at all. And here's what we're going to do. Palm is going to face up, and we're going to reach that arm forward, and then we're going to reach it up. When you get that arm up over your head, flip that palm back, and we're going to go back down the other side. And here is your goal, to make the biggest possible circle. So let your rib cage twist. Your thoracic spine can move around. We want that. What we don't want is for those hips to move. So we're trying to keep our hips square. Here's another little goal, and this may or may not happen for you today, but pretend that you're standing next to a wall, and so you can't let your arm touch this wall. And you'll really feel this when you're going back down the other side. That's where most of us have some tight spots. And just keep making these big, big circles. And if you do eventually want to use a weight in your hand and hold on to a weight, make sure it's something pretty light. Maybe a soup can. All right, then release that down, give it a little shake. I'm going to turn around and do the other side. So palm faces up, hips are going to stay square. Palm faces up, going up the front, and then flip it around and point it back as you go down. Big, big circles. And imagine you have that wall next to you, and you're trying to avoid touching the wall with your arm. Now we all have little tight spots, little places where that circle flattens out or slows down, or maybe you have to bend your elbow to get around. That's okay. Meet yourself where you are. And then just do this, just for a minute each day or so. Just do some big old shoulder circles, and you'll start to notice that your shoulders have a better range of motion with a lot less tension. All right, let's shake that out. Do some more little wrist circles because we're going to come back to all fours. So let's get ourselves back down. Now we're going to get into those hips. Hips, we like to hold a lot of tension and tightness and stress in our hips. So we're going to give those hips a little love. Shift your weight over into your right knee and pick up your left knee. And you're going to try and keep that 90-degree angle while drawing circles again. Now draw your circles only as big as you can without your back starting to get involved. So we're trying to keep these circles coming just from your glutes, just from the muscles right around that hip joint. So if you try to go too big, you end up kind of moving through your back, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So just make that movement come right from that joint. That's it. And then draw those circles the other way. You might feel all those muscles in your glutes starting to fire up too. That's pretty fun. And then bring that knee down. Let's pick up the right knee. Get that 90-degree angle and start drawing your circles. And again, just trying to move from the joint, resisting the temptation to start flexing that spine around. And then circle the other way. And don't worry if you got a little snap, crackle, pop going. There are days I've got a full percussion section. All right, bring that knee back down. And then open your knees out to the edges of your mat. Toes are touching. You're going to sit back into those hips. Get nice and deep back into those hips. And then reach your arms forward. Just come down as far as you feel like you can. Wide-kneed child pose. Take some deep breaths. All right, come on back up. Now we're going to get some nice stretches for those wrists. So we've been doing our little wrist circles. We've been challenging them a little bit with the all fours position, little extra pressure. Now we're going to give them a nice stretch. So let's bring those hands, palms down, fingers face away, right by your knees. Straighten out your arms. You want to try and keep your elbows from bending. And we're just going to shift forward. Keeping your palms on the floor and keep your arms straight. If you bend your arms, you just lose the stretch in your wrists. So only go as far forward as you need to feel the stretch in your wrists. Now this is pretty close to the one we've been doing. Whenever you're down on all fours, this is kind of the stretch you're doing. It might just be a little deeper. And then sit back, interlace your fingers, and do some circles. All right. Staying close, put the backs of your hands on the floor, right next to your knees. Straighten out those arms, and very slowly shift your weight forward. Only go to the place you need to feel the stretch. That's it. We're not going for the world's deepest stretch or anything, and there's no competition. Just go to where you need to feel it. And never to the point of pain. And then sit back. Now let's do some little wrist circles. All right, now let's come forward. Palms are going to be down on the floor, but our fingers are facing back. Now you might find if it's too intense, you may have to put those hands a little closer to your knees. That's perfectly fine. Straighten out your elbows, and then if you need to, start to go back a little bit. Just if you need to feel the stretch. Breathing deeply. I'll tell you a little secret about joint flexibility. It's mostly hereditary and has a lot to do with how you're put together skeletally, how your bones are structured. Some of it you can train, and of course mobility is the more practical part of that. But just keep in mind, this is not a competition. And remember that your joint flexibility doesn't have much to do with you. All right, we've got one more. It's my favorite one, and it's really weird. Come forward. Put the backs of your hands on the floor with your fingers facing you. Now, this is the most intense, so really listen to your body. If having your hands underneath you in this position is just not happening for you today, then I want you to do this stretch this way, without gravity. Okay, so you'll just pull your palms towards you with your fingers facing down. So that's another option. Really listen to your body on this one. And for a lot of people, just getting your elbows straight is going to be a challenge, just in and of itself. So if that's where you're at, that's great. You stay right there and you just work towards straightening out your arms. If you straighten out your arms and you feel like you could go a little deeper, then go ahead and sit back a little bit. And again, you're just going to the place where you need to feel the stretch. Now, I sprained my left wrist pretty badly about a month and a half ago, and so it doesn't want to go any farther than this, but my right wrist is pretty flexible and I'm not really feeling the stretch here, so I'm going to move my right wrist forward so that I can get a stretch without torturing my left wrist. So that is an option for you. If you're a little bit uneven in your joints, you've got one that's a little more flexible than the other, go ahead and get a good stretch for that one without hurting the other. All right. Woo, interlace those fingers. Get those little wrist circles. You feel all that circulation coming back. Love those wrist stretches. Keeping everything nice and supple. Okay, last little bit of mobility. This one's for your hips, knees, and ankles. First things first, have a seat. Feet flat on the floor, knees up. And as much as you can, you want to sit up really tall in this one. But luckily, you get a little support. So bring your hands back behind you, pushing the floor away so that we're not collapsing down. Don't chill too much. Stay active. Push the floor away, shoulders retract and depress, chest is tall. And we're just going to do windshield wipers. So we're just dropping your knees side to side. And let your hip come up off the floor. So you're getting this nice little twist happening through your lower back. We're really moving through those hips. And we're getting those knees going side to side. in this flexed position. So this is a level 1. This is feeling pretty good, and you want to try going a little deeper. Level 2 is to do this from a squatting position. This isn't really level 2, this should be like level 7. But windshield wipers are a great way to get that little flexibility, that little motion through your hips and your knees and into your lower back without having to do a low squat. But if you want to try the low squat, I highly recommend it. So you're going to sit nice and low. Feet are a little wider than your hips, toes are pointing out, knees are going in the same direction as your toes. And as much as you can, you're sitting up tall through your chest. Now, if you feel like you can't put your heels down without falling backwards, you may just have some tightness through your ankles. Not the end of the world. So what we can do in that case is roll up a mat right up underneath those heels and give yourself a little platform for your heels. Weightlifters do it all the time. So find your low squat, whatever it's looking like for you today. Now honestly, just sitting in a low squat is amazing for your body. So you should just try it. And do it for as long as you can stand it, and then stop, and then do it a little longer the next day. So hang out in that low squat for a second. I'm going to turn around and show you what is happening next. So the next thing we're going to do is do a gentle twist to the right and drop our knees down. Have a seat. Right knee is down, right foot is pressing into the inside of my left thigh. I'm in sort of a hurdler stretch. And then shift yourself back up into that low squat, gentle twist, take it over to the left. Same thing. And we're just going side to side. This can be very intense. So I would say get comfortable in your low squat. Well, comfortable, and then try to do the forced flow, which is what this is. Otherwise, those windshield wipers are a really great way to move through your hips. Now, if you are attempting this, what you want to watch for is a place where you can keep your feet where they just tip side to side and they don't move around and shift around and step around. It's just a little twist. So what this does is it takes that low squat position, which is deep flexion for your hips, your knees, and your ankles, and moves around it. And I know it might look like a magic trick at first, but I promise, if you do it just a little bit every day, just a little bit, you'll be amazed at the difference it can make. Not just in your joints, but in how your lower back feels. So much lower back pain comes from those hips being locked up. Or maybe it's those knees that are locked up, and all that locked upness is traveling right into your lower back. So just this little move can really help. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed all of these little exercises for joint mobility. The great thing about these, you don't have to warm up into them. Just grab whichever one you are needing today and just like take a desk break, just take a life break and do something good for your body.